And welcome to Small Biz Matters live in the studio here at Triple H 100.1 FM. Thank you for joining me, my avid listeners, those of you who are passionate about small business education as we are here at Triple H and Small Biz Matters. Now, later in the program today, we have Justine Williams, who's coming in to talk from the ATO all about preparing yourself for the end of financial year. Don't worry, don't panic. I know you've started getting those emails creeping into our inboxes from our accountants and from various other organisations who are going to have an end of financial year sale, for example. But it is something you need to wrap your head around, and it's a good time of year to do it. Why? Well, the reality is you don't actually need to have any of your stuff ready for your accountant until next May. Sure, you can leave it to the last minute. But why would you do that when you've got everything prepared, you've been lodging your BASs, everything's up to date? You might as well get everything sorted. And that way, you know now, in this financial year, what's been happening with your business. It's really important to keep on top of your records. So later in the program, Justine's going to be talking to us about keeping good records for your business. What does the ATO expect to see? What does it not need to see? How have things changed in relation to record keeping with new implementations such as single touch payroll or self-assessment? And how does that affect you, the small business owner, with what you need to prepare for the ATO for the end of financial year? But really, it's all about making sure that you're organised and understanding what your numbers mean. We're very passionate about that here on Small Biz Matters. It's about understanding what does a P&L tell you? What sort of fluctuations should you be keeping an eye on in your business? Where have your expenses gone through the roof? And in relation to that, have you seen a good return on investment when you've invested that money into your business? Have you had a big advertising budget this year? And in relation to that, have you then seen actual sales figures gone up as a result? What have your costs of sales been like? Have you employed or looked after some consultants throughout the year? Did you take on new employees, for example? How much did that cost you? And did you see any return on investment for their employment? So there's a lot of reasons why you should keep a really close eye on those figures and get to know them. And a good person, of course, to talk to in relation to that is a bookkeeper and BAS agent. Your accountant can, of course, assist, but a bookkeeper BAS agent will be in your accounts constantly and really understand your movement of money and fluctuations and they might spot things that change as well. So have a chat to them, have an end of financial year chat. Say, I've been with you for a few years. I want to have a look at how things are changing and what's been changing in my business. And that's a really good opportunity to keep on top of your numbers. And the end of financial year is a great time to do that. Now, just while I've got you all and we're waiting for Justine to arrive in the studio, I thought we could talk a little bit about what's been happening on Small Biz Matters in the last few weeks. There are some fantastic podcasts for you to tune into. So, for example, last week we had Michael Gottlieb, who is the CEO of BizCover. We talked all about the importance of insurance, the different types of insurance, depending on what sector you're in, what you need to be aware of, perhaps if you're overinsured or underinsured, what sort of questions you need to prepare to ask your broker to make sure that you're being covered for that. And then the week before, we had Ingrid Thompson, who was the author of So You Want to Start a Business. And that was fantastic because we talked all about the step-by-step processes for getting started. But those of you who are in business who think to yourselves, well, I don't need to know that. Do you? Have a look at what she was talking about because her 7-step process is really awesome. And it talks about all the different aspects you need to be aware of. And let's face it, when you've been in business for a couple of years, you're a little bit more aware of where you're at with all of those different aspects. And I'm sure there's everyone out there has room for improvement as well. Just before that, we also had Jim Davidson, who is a performance coach specialising in teams. Now, I know you're out there and you're thinking, well, I'm a team of one. Do I really need to lead myself? Sometimes, yes, you do. You need to be a good leader for yourself and inspire yourself. But more importantly, if you have a small team, say 4 to 5 staff, he was giving some really top tips about performance managing your staff, assisting them. It's not just all about KPIs. It's not just all about avoiding unfair dismissal. It's actually about creating a great environment in which your team can thrive. And then the last couple before then was, of course, it was election time. If you were hiding under a rock and you didn't think it was that important, it is actually really important as a small business that you're tapped into what's going on at around election time. So we had a couple of really great interviews. We interviewed Senator Michaelia Cash, who is now and remains the Small Business Minister, amongst other things within her portfolio. It was great to talk to her about what the federal government is planning to do moving forward with supporting small business, where their emphasis are when it comes to funding, perhaps, and any sort of changes they're doing to alleviate the pressure on small business when it comes to compliance, red tape, and in fact taxes. That's what the federal government was singing about leading up to the election. Then we had Peter Strong, who is, of course, the CEO of the Council of Small Business Australia, a wonderful advocate, a former small businessman himself. He's in the news a lot, supporting us and fighting for small business rights. It was great to have him on the program. We kind of unpacked the budget, we unpacked the election a little bit, and there's an upcoming COSBOA conference. I believe it's in August down in Melbourne. So if you're interested in policy, if you're interested in representing small business and you believe that you have something to say, then you might want to think about coming along to that COSBOA conference down in Melbourne. I think it's the 17th and 18th of September. I'll check those dates and get all back to you. Now, we're going to take a quick song now, and then when we come back, we're going to be talking to Justine Williams, who is, of course, the Acting Assistant Commissioner for Small Business, and she's going to take us through all the fantastic tips from the ATO and how to work with the ATO to prepare your business for the end of financial year. You are listening to Small Biz Matters. We're going to take a quick break and come back after this. And welcome back into the studio here for Small Biz Matters at Triple H 100.1 FM. You are, of course, live on Triple H every week, Tuesdays, Small Biz Matters, and across the community radio network around Australia. Thank you for joining me again. We're very excited to be welcoming a very special guest in the program. As my regular listeners will know, we now broadcast for the ATO and support them with getting the message across to small business. And we're very proud to have the Acting Assistant Commissioner for Small Business, Justine Williams, on the show. Thank you very much for joining us live in the studio, Justine.
Thanks for having me, Alexi.
Now, hang on, I haven't turned you on. Try that again.
Thanks for having me, Alexi. It's great to be here.
Turn mic on, mental note. So we're going to be talking about the end of financial year. Now, it is looming, but it doesn't have to be a burden necessarily for you and your workload. There's some pretty good checklists and some support documents to follow on the ATO. There's great videos. There's a small business newsroom, of course, and there's always support on your hand from your BAS agent and your accountant. But what if you haven't been doing a great job with keeping up to date? What if you're a couple of BASs behind? What if you've never had to do BAS, so you tend to leave everything to the last minute? And what if you're a little bit lost with what's required at this time of year? But if you do keep good bookkeeping and your good records and they're up to date, then it shouldn't be stressful. On the other hand, but if you're a bit behind, then maybe the ATO might be there to help you too. So today, Small Business Matters welcomes Justine Williams, the Acting Assistant Commissioner for Small Business with the ATO, to chat about what you need to have in place to take the stress away from completing your own end of financial year checklist. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Alexi.
So we're going to be talking about the end of financial year. And do you find that it kind of, does it tend to, do you find the stress levels going up on the phones? Do people ring in and go, oh my God, what am I going to do about, the end of financial year? How am I going to keep on top of things? I am behind. Do you get a little bit of feedback from the guys on the ground saying, it does tend to get a bit more stressful?
Yeah, I think so, because, small businesses, whilst they're, very busy, they're also mindful that they want to get things right. And so, and especially this time of year, they're doing their end of year reconciliations, and they just want to make sure that they're doing all the right things so that they can just keep on and focusing on their business, and probably reaching out for a little bit of help to make sure that they're ending the financial year on a good step.
And speaking of help, I have to say that over the last couple of years, the ATO website, the Small Business Newsroom in particular, and that whole section on small business support is just fantastic. Any listeners out there who haven't checked it out yet, just go exploring, just navigate your way around the system. It's really well set up. It's a great way to find out your processes and procedures, and some really good tips as well that apparently we should innately know as a small business.
Well, it's good because they're almost little bite-sized bits of information that you do need to understand to help you to run your business a whole lot better, to give you lots of opportunities there.
So let's talk about the nitty-gritty now. Let's talk about what does the ATO expect to see in terms of evidence, receipts, payment summaries, that sort of thing. So, you're sitting there at your desk, it's the end of financial year, it's getting close, and you're going, right, what do I have to gather? What do I have to know that I have to present to the ATO these days? So
you need to keep records of all of your business transactions, so including the income you receive through cash and electronic payments, and your expenses. You need those records to be able to prove the expenses that you are claiming, like your tax invoices, travel diaries and logbooks if you're claiming car expenses. If an expense is for both business and personal use, this is just a must. You must only claim the portion that is related to your business use.
And obviously some typical ones around that is motor vehicle expenses, mobile phone. What about home internet? That falls under that category as well?
Yeah, it does.
It's basically anything where there's a potential where you could be using it as a home-based, for your family and for your home as well as your business. You
Yeah, that's right. Because it's not 100, those expenses are not 100% for business use, and, especially whilst they're in the home or, when they're related to your home. So we do have a really good calculator on our website as well. So if you're unsure, definitely have a look at the calculator, but also talk to your agent or your bookkeeper.
Yeah, indeed, because there's different methods of doing those calculations. Obviously, with motor vehicle, there's a variety of methods, and maybe one method is not the best one for you and your industry and what you run with your business, and your accountant should know that best, really.
Absolutely, yeah. And always ask. If you're unsure, don't set yourself up on a pathway because, somebody tells you that you should do something a certain way. That way might not be right for you. So I think that you do need to be a bit curious and understand what actually works for you that enables you to meet your obligations as well.
Is that the sort of thing that people can ring up the ATO and ask about with record keeping? Or is it better to go to the website and have, just literally search record keeping and then it'll pop up with a few different articles and things?
I think that it is better to go on and have a look for yourself on websites. There's lots of record keeping, software out there. So I would talk to your bookkeeper or your accountant because they might have, something that they're more familiar with and they encourage you to use. But we, generally we won't kind of advise you about the sorts of record keeping software for you to use.
No, definitely not. Because we can't, we want to make sure that everything's fair and equal.
That's right, yeah.
So I'm going to pop on my bookkeeping hat here for a second and say that don't trust software 100%. Because sometimes it goes wrong. So just remember that your PDF bank statements are a true record and you should always be cross-checking those with what's happening in your software because things can be missed. You might miss out on a huge expense because it didn't, it wasn't captured properly into your accounting system with the bank feed. So make sure that you're just double-checking those bank statements are correct and everything's flowing through correctly.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about what if you've got staff? What do you need to have done? And this is all changing, of course, with the implementation of single touch payroll. Anybody who's been living under a rock, running a small business, has staff, please go and check that out because we're not going to talk about it too much today. There has been a great podcast with Small Biz Matters and John Shepherd a little while ago, so check that out. But we're not going to talk about that. But what do we need this year if we've had staff in preparation for the end of financial year?
Yeah, so you need to make sure that you... So if you haven't already, taken up software that is single touch payroll enabled, then you need to make sure that you are preparing your payment summaries. So you're for the end of the financial year, and to be able to give those to your employees. So also do your end of year reconciliation.
Exactly. Make sure that you've paid your super and make sure that everything's being calculated properly in either your ledger or your software or your bits of paper that are hanging around. You've got to make sure that it's all correct.
Absolutely. And get that right and, at the end of the year so that you can start the new year off afresh. I
would even just hesitate to say that is almost the most important thing at the end of financial year to get right. You need to make sure your employees are looked after,
Absolutely.
Really. And you need to make sure that you have been paying your super on time and keeping it up to date. And maybe if there was like a big fluctuation or maybe you put something in and you forgot to include it in the super whatever, just make sure it's all wrapped up in a bundle and reconciled by the end of financial year. And anybody who's over 30, when we say payment summaries, we're talking about group certificates.
Yeah. new to be income statements.
Yes, so. I know. And then anybody who's a millennial will be like, oh, I don't even know what a payment summary is. So let's talk about bank statements now because I did mention them before with them being PDF. Great. Thank you, banks, for not giving us reams of paper anymore. It's great that we can access those. Most banks these days will let you download about... I think it's up 2 years, between 2 and 5 years of that, but it's always a good idea to sort of keep them on hand so that down the track, if you're audited, for example, you've got them easy access. So let's talk about if bank statements are enough because there's a little bit of sort of, I guess, debate around the small business community that is a bank statement going to give me enough information? What are your thoughts on that?
So... I would say that they probably don't always give you enough information. So records that you keep have to have enough information for you to be able to support the amounts that you need to report and claim. So the bank statements will not always give you, company information or, business information or, GST information. And you do need that to be able to then be able to substantiate your claims as well. So I would err on the side of keeping your receipts as well as, your bank statements.
Particularly when you're dealing with contractors, because I don't know how many times we see as small businesses people handing in these scraps of paper that don't have an ABN on them, or they say that they're registered for GST and they're not. Yeah. That for me is an immediate red flag. You've got to check all of those guys, and half the time they don't know what they're doing anyway. So you can, take them under your wing as a more experienced business owner and say, listen, this is not correct, and it's actually not going to help my business if you give me an incorrect tax invoice anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would be keeping your receipts as well as your bank statements. Don't just rely on your bank statements.
Good tip. Thank you. Now, let's talk about the concept of self-assessment. So why is that an important thing to be aware of as a business with your relationship with the ATO, particularly at the end of financial year?
Yeah, so I think, what self-assessment means is that we will initially take your claims that you make in your tax return as being true. We may still adjust your return, though, if required. So if we ask you to substantiate a claim and you're unable to, then we will adjust. So the ATO will adjust that return for you. And self-assessment means that you're responsible for the information that you put into your return. So even if you do use an agent or a bookkeeper, ultimately you're still responsible as the business owner to make sure that that's true and correct.
And a lot of good BAS agents and bookkeepers will actually and accountants will have engagement letters that do really clearly stipulate that. It's like, we're going to do our best, but I'm sorry, at the end of the day, we can only work with the documentation and the information you give us. If it's incorrect and you've given it to us, well, we have to think that it's correct, and that's what we're working with. Yeah,
and on the flip side, it's not okay to then absolve yourself and sort of say, well, my accountant told me that I could do that, and so therefore, yes, I'm going to claim this, even if it's not correct. So, just be mindful of that.
Does that happen a lot? Do you have a lot of businesses kind of going, I was given a bum steer, someone told me the wrong information, or maybe even lying that they were told the wrong information?
Yeah, it's sometimes hard to pick what's the, the actual, the truth between those two statements. But, there is lots of good information on our website, especially as it relates to deductions and claiming certain expenses. So I would encourage, if it's, it's that old adage, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Just go on and have a, take responsibility and research some of that for yourself.
That whole self-assessment thing, is that actually legislated?
Yes.
Right. So you can't blame the ATO for not, this is the thing, is what I like to try and advise listeners about, because ultimately you guys are working with the legislation which is handed down from Parliament.
That's right.
And you're working wrong word, manipulating.
Administering?
Administering, the opposite of manipulating. And you're looking after that. Now, you're sort of the caretakers, if you will. But at the end of the day, it's the legislators. And that self-assessment thing, that's come down from Parliament. That cannot be changed or changed at all.
I think if it was going to be changed, it would require a complete, sort of redoing of the tax system. But yeah, you're right. So our role as a regulator is just to make sure that people are operating within the system that has been, set down by Parliament.
Talking about self-assessment, when we talk about, you say, well, it's your responsibility, that just means that all of the penalties and all of the, court cases, if it does come to that, or really nasty stuff, that's just because of the self-assessment rule. It really comes down to you as the business owner, and you're liable and responsible, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely. And so what we will do if, as I've said before, some of those expenses or the claims, are not legal or are outside of the norms, then we will adjust accordingly to bring, back in line with the, the various laws.
When you say when you say the norm, is that around sort of those industry benchmarks and things like that? You really know how people behave within that particular sector, or
absolutely, yeah. So we've got a lot of data, and we use a lot of data to inform our views or inform the reality that is the benchmark. So around particular industries. So, if you're curious, I would encourage you to go and have a look at the ATO benchmarks.
Oh, they're fantastic. I love them. You can look at your industry and you can go, oh, how am I doing compared to everyone else, and how's it been going in the last few years? How am I doing with the last few years? So it's really awesome.
It is, because you can see whether you're wildly different. So on a, in a good sense or in a bad sense, and, where you should be, what's reasonable.
And also what's reasonable with regards to deductions.
That's right.
Yep. So if you're a hairdresser who's running a small salon in Asquith, for example, and you're driving a $400 million car, ATO is going to go, hang on a sec. We're going to talk a bit more about that at the end of the show as well. And then what we might do is take a quick break here on Small Biz. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about, how have things changed in terms of documentation and the new legislation that is coming in with things like STP and a bunch of other things. We're here with Justine Williams from the ATO, and we will back with Small Biz Matters after this. So today we are talking to Justine Williams from the ATO, and we're super excited to have her on the program because it's always great to share the knowledge that the ATO is passionate about giving to small business. So it's lovely to have you here, Justine.
Thanks, Alexi.
Now, just before the break, we were talking about benchmarks and certain things that the ATO has produced with its data that actually helps small business for their end of financial year support. What other changes have happened in the ATO recently that small business really needs to know about?
So I think, definitely single touch payroll. You've touched on that. I think taxable payments reporting software. Not software.
TPAS.
Yeah, TPAS, exactly. So just to know that the TPRS has expanded to beyond the building and construction industry. So most of your listeners might know that building and construction have been subject to taxable payments reporting systems since 2012. But this is the first year that businesses will need to provide cleaning or courier services. They need to lodge a TPAR.
And there's more coming, isn't there?
There is. So from the 1st of July 2019, we've got TPARs being extended to businesses providing road freight, information technology, security, investigation or surveillance services.
Yeah, so it's really if you provide that product or service at all, you need to talk to your accountant and find out what the process is to make sure that you're reporting correctly. And really it's not, again, I sort of feel that there's a lot of fear about, there's more administrative burden or there's more stuff you've got to do. Why does the ATO do this? What was the huge success that they had in the construction industry, and why are they rolling it out to other industries?
Yeah, so the huge success is that we're actually bringing, money and tax in to the economy that just wasn't being paid before. So we are now having, getting an increased visibility of, some of the work in those industries that have traditionally been cash industries. And there's nothing wrong with cash, but you do need to make sure that you're, reporting and paying the appropriate tax on the work that you do. So it has been, hugely successful. I've got something like $5 billion, I think, dollars that was bought in.
It is in the billions.
Yeah,
it's huge.
That's been bought in as a result of, applying that through to the building and construction industry. So it's really important that with all the work that's being done, that everybody's paying their fair share.
And it's not difficult to report this if you've got good record keeping in place. That's what we were saying at the beginning of the program. Have good record keeping, and then it's just a matter of reporting it.
Well, it's part and parcel of, running your business. So if you're employing contractors, you're paying them. So you've got all of the, when you're onboarding them, you're doing all of your due diligence to actually make sure that you've got their details, all the right information. TPRS isn't actually requiring you to do anything new other than reporting that same information that you're collecting to onboard them anyway.
Yeah, and I know we don't want to push the whole accounting software thing, But this is one of the times where a little bit of money can save you a hell of a lot of time.
Absolutely.
Because all of these systems, if they are recognised accounting software platforms that are compliant with ATO standards, and the big ones are, I think you all know what I'm talking about, that they will have systems in place to be able to capture all that data. And it's really quite simple. It's just about learning how to use the software correctly.
Yeah, and getting into good habits. I think it's what we see and what we know is that good habits, good record keeping are the key markers of success.
Exactly. So let's talk about deadlines now. So important deadlines around the end of financial year. I know we don't like deadlines, but we do like deadlines because they make us keep up to date. That's why I always say, if you've got a business and you're starting and you're registered for GST, just go straight on to quarterly reporting. Because then you know what? Every quarter you're up to date, and you might have a couple of late nights here and there to try and get everything up to date. But imagine trying to remember what you did in July the following, May and beyond. It's impossible. You can't even begin to try and remember what it is.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the end of financial year deadlines that people need to be aware of.
Yeah, so if you're preparing and lodging your own return yourself, then 31st of October is your deadline for lodging your income tax return. Obviously, depending on, what cycle you're on with your business activity statement, that will be, quarterly, monthly. Not many yearly would be listening to your program. But if you're using a registered tax agent, then you probably have an extension to lodge. Most agents do have that extended lodgement program. So just make sure that you confirm with your agent when your due date is. A lot are in May, so you really should have been already been in to see your agent. But for STP, you just need to make sure that you finalise your payroll information by the 31st of July. You don't need to lodge a payment summary and your report for amounts you've reported through STP. But if you don't use STP yet, you still need to provide your workers with pay-as-you-go or pay-as-you-go payment summary by the 14th of July.
So that's the old due date, and that remains.
That's right. And you need to lodge your pay-as-you-go payment summary and your report to us by the 14th of August. So that's another date. And, the earlier you finalise your payroll information or lodge your annual report, the easier it is for your employees to actually lodge their returns. So, a lot of people are eagerly awaiting to be able to lodge their returns, and with the information we use to pre-fill, their information for them. So the earlier you get that through to us, the easier it is for your employees.
Also, it actually has a trickle-down effect on when we meet our deadlines as small businesses, how that affects our employees, because they can't lodge and potentially get a return until all that information has been provided.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, I didn't put two and two together like that.
So, and your employees can actually, lodge based on what they think is going to be their, their end-of-year statement. But if they've got finalised data from you as the business and as their employer, then that will be then matched and pre-filled into their return. So pre-filling's wonderful.
And be aware of what your employees need. I mean, some of them might be waiting on that particular return for a house deposit or something like that. So be conscious and try and make sure that you meet those deadlines, but also make sure that you're reconciling everything and making sure it's all accurate before you present that information to the ATO, because otherwise I could stuff them around as well.
Absolutely. And what you don't want is even small debts. So if something's wrong and then, instead of getting a refund, your employee has an amount outstanding, it's never a good feeling. So,
yeah.
And don't forget your BAS lodgement. So if you're quarterly, your quarter four is due on the 28th of July. So
yes, there's not that lovely extension that everyone gets at Christmas time. Sometimes people get a bit confused. They go, in a financial year, maybe I get a bit extra much. No, you don't get extra time.
No, but just I think make sure you are aware of your due dates. Pop them in your calendar. We've got a great calendar in the ATO app. So, just be aware of your due dates and get into good habits to, get in early to try and meet those due dates.
We didn't mention the ATO app before. That actually has some really great calculators and tools. It even has an expensing system that you can use to capture images and put your expenses in. If you don't have any specific type of software, you can use that one as well.
Absolutely. So you were talking before about keeping receipts. So especially for sole traders, this is perfect because what you can do is you can track your motor vehicle expenses. You can take photos of your receipts, in addition to your bank statement. So it really is a one-stop free shop that I would encourage any sole trader to use.
Can I ask on behalf of the conspiracy theorists out there, is any of that data being read or sourced or used for other purposes by the ATO?
No.
Yeah.
No.
You heard it here. Did everyone listen to that? Because we actually just heard that from the Assistant Commissioner for Small Business. No.
So it stays on your phone. So any of the receipts and information that you capture in the app stays with you, stays on your phone. Even when you transfer it through to your agent, all it is basically the label information. So it's the aggregate figure. So we're not getting uploads of your receipts and your data, and we're just getting line information.
Brilliant. Just a little reminder, all of you who have got a phone, that this information, such as bank statements, if it's being captured, please make sure that you've got a password protection on your phone or a Find My Phone so that you can disable it should it go missing, because all of this information is there, and that's some pretty high-level confidential data that you've got on your phone. So just, put some protections in place for yourself as well, because I'm sure that you've all got lots of different stuff in emails and attachments, and we've talked about that on the program before, Justine, about cyber security and keeping everything safe.
And I think that, there weirdly is a belief that if it's on my phone, like I don't need, antivirus software, all that protection software. You absolutely do.
Yeah. And you need backup.
Yeah.
Yeah, back up your phone. Everyone seems to be forgetting how to do. Remember, we used to do that quite diligently, but because everything's in the cloud now, we think, I don't need to. And then when you lose your phone or something happens to it, and then you realise, not all those really precious photos were just in my phone. They weren't actually in the cloud.
Yeah, it is. We need to get better at getting into better backup habits, I think, as well.
Indeed. We might take a quick break here on Small Biz Matters. We're talking to Justine Williams, the Assistant Commissioner for Small Business at the ATO. We will be back after these short announcements to talk more about how you can prepare yourself for the end of financial year. Welcome back to Small Biz Matters. You are live in the studios of Triple H 100.1 FM and across the community radio network. I am Alexi Boyd, talking all things small business. And since it's June, let's talk about the end of financial year. And who better to bring on the program than Justine Williams, who is the Acting Assistant Commissioner for the ATO for Small Business. Thank you once again for joining us on the program.
Thanks, Alexi.
Now, before the break, we were talking about different ways that the ATO supports through an app or through information you can get through the fantastic, very informational, great business education source, which is the ATO website. We were talking about the changes that have recently happened, single touch payroll, TPARs, if your industry is affected by that, and just keep communicating with your tax agent or your BAS agent so you can find out what is important for you to be aware of. Because really the last thing we want to do at the end of financial year, I mean, a lot of businesses out there, I suppose, are going through quite a heavy workload because there's, the big business, the big end of town want to quickly spend all their marketing budgets, for example, or they've got money to spend, and we, the small businesses, have to scramble to get ourselves organised. It's a busy time of year for us.
Yep.
But I suppose when you run a business, every time's a busy time of year, and the stress, it can get a bit overwhelming. What's the ATO been doing lately in the last couple of years to support small business? Because I know that you guys are getting onto roundtable discussions with Beyond Blue, and you're giving support and you're giving feedback about what processes are out there. Why is the ATO so passionate about small business mental health?
We recognise that running a small business is stressful and it is time consuming, and so to actually take the time to understand what it is that you need to do can be daunting, especially when you're feeling a bit overwhelmed with running the business, and so we've been working with Beyond Blue and participating in lots of programs where we can improve or support people suffering from mental health issues. And and we've also trained all of our frontline staff in empathy training, so that they can actually understand the difference that small businesses have and the unique experience that small businesses have in managing a lot of the regulatory requirements for them in addition to running their small business. So, you know, we're really passionate about supporting small businesses. They just need to reach out. What we find is that most small businesses will reach out to us when they're well into the crisis, and you know, contacting us sooner, especially as it relates to debt, contacting us sooner, you know, would be far more beneficial in the long run, because, you know, getting back on your feet a lot sooner is much better than, you know, kind of at a point where, you know, it's a lot more difficult to actually get back up and out of the crisis that you're in, back on your feet.
And when we've spoken to ATO representatives here on Small Biz Matters before, there's been a lot of, I guess that the what I'm getting back is that you guys are not in the business of putting people out of business.
God, no.
It's not in your interest, or even the tax department's interest to, you know, not. You've got to keep people up and running so that you can continue to, you know, get them to be successful and get them to pay tax. It doesn't make any sense to force people into bankruptcy and then end up with nothing.
Well, and to contribute to the economy, you know, we've got about 3.8 million small businesses across Australia, and they employ around 5.5 million individuals. So this is really important to us, you know, as an economy, to make sure that small businesses are thriving and that they're set up for success, and that they're availing themselves of the opportunities to be as successful as they can. Ultimately, you know, small businesses will run their businesses, they're responsible for their businesses, but there are lots of supports out there. You just need to reach out and ask for help.
So you mentioned that the ATO are trained now in empathy. That's really, really good news. And that you're working with people like Beyond Blue to provide programs for support. And those of you who are out there who haven't explored this, and I'm not suggesting anyone who's even in the throes of a mental health issue, even if you're not, educate yourself and find out what support networks are out there. So there's Head Start. They've got a great small business section now, Beyond Blue, obviously. And obviously, if you're really experiencing difficulties, Lifeline. Now, when people are, you know, approaching the ATO, what do they need to have in place? I mean, obviously, if you're experiencing that, it's a terrible situation to be in, and you haven't really got the headspace to think, oh, what do I need to provide? Is there a checklist of documentation you need to have, or what does the ATO expect to see to prove, bad word, but reality, that you're experiencing difficulties in mental health?
So everyone in every situation is different. So, you know, which is why it's just best to call us as early as possible, and, you know, let us know about your situation. Depending on what that situation is, we will work with you to work out the best option, and you know, what you need to show us. So I can't kind of give you know, it will need to be a doctor's certificate and, you know, and we're all good. You know, we may be able to help you organise a payment plan, defer a lodgement or payment, or fast track your tax return. But there's also, you know, you can, you know, even negotiate or online develop your own payment plan. So if you're kind of feeling a bit like, you know, head in the sand, you just want to, you know, work out a payment arrangement, and negotiate that, you know, with the ATO without even, you know, speaking to somebody. You can do that yourself. But I would encourage you to call us.
And also get your help of, I believe there's probably some government services out there. Perhaps your local council might have some support with financial organisation and bookkeeping and record keeping, that they can train you or assist you with that. It doesn't have to cost a fortune. If you're in a real dire straits financially, then you may not be able to afford an accountant or a bookkeeper. So in that case, there are support mechanisms in place to help you to get yourself organised. It's about getting on the front foot, isn't it?
It is, and there are lots of business coaches. There are lots of networks out there. You know, that was part of the, you know, what we learned through the mental health roundtable was, you know, that Minister Cash actually convened. It's being able to identify all of the services at state, local, and federal government so many services out there. I just think that it's probably more the awareness and what's right for me at this point in time, because not everybody's needs are going to be the same. And so recognising, kind of when you're in stress as opposed to, when you're, suffering from a significant mental illness.
It's certainly something where social media has done us all a great disservice, because there's now so much information out there that you can't see the wood from the trees, and the really important information, like the support services, is just not cutting through.
That's right. And where do I go? And I think that, a lot of the preference for people is it'll just fix itself. It just doesn't fix itself. So, and we as humans, I think, need to get better at reaching out and saying, look, I'm in a bit of trouble here and I need some help, and accepting that help.
Could I just check one thing in terms of strategy in the practical sense of it? If you ring up the ATO and you say, look, I'm experiencing this, this and this, can you ask to have it documented on your record? They write it down, they put some notes down so that you're almost... it's kind of like a mental health check, isn't it? You're saying, well, I've checked in with the ATO, I'm giving them an update on where I'm up to. Does that record stay with you and your ABN or your tax file number?
Yeah, so whenever you contact the ATO and speak to us, all of our... any staff member that you would speak with would actually write down, keep a record of that conversation. We also have the benefit of technology, so all of our calls are recorded as well. So, there is that that comfort that if you do contact us, there should be a record of that conversation as well. Indeed.
Well, look, that's a really good piece of information to know, that if you are experiencing difficulties, you just give them a call, get on the front foot, and that the ATO really does care, and it's in your best interest as well to make sure that the mental health of small business is maintained, because it's becoming a greater and greater issue really as well, particularly in regional countries, areas where there's the drought affecting farmers, etc., and not just affecting farmers but the trickle-down effect for the entire industry as well.
Absolutely. So, and we've also got a range of workshops, webinars, tools and information that you can that you can seek out information about and work out what is right for you, but definitely having a conversation, just renegotiating payments or renegotiating lodgement times, rather than avoiding and then just waiting for the letters to arrive at the door. Have a conversation with us, see what we can negotiate to actually support you through that busy time or that more stressful time.
Excellent. Very good advice. Now, where can people find out more about what the ATO does to support small business, Justine?
Definitely on our website. ato.gov.au, small business support. Definitely have a look at that. We've also got web chat that is available out of hours. So, if you would prefer to have your questions answered, through, contacting us outside of 6 p.m, then, web chat is your go-to person. We've also got Alex, our virtual assistant. She knows a lot of things, so...
disturbingly.
She does, disturbingly, and she's available 24/7. So, our website's pretty good now compared to what it used to be. It used to be a bit awful to use.
Yeah, it's certainly improved. I would say that, definitely. I'm very comfortable with recommending people to go to certain pages because it's digestible information as well.
Yeah, and I think that, and Alex is just that extra layer where she will be able to sort of direct you to the pages if you can't find what you're looking for. And
I also encourage people to subscribe to the Small Business Newsroom, which is a great newsletter, very digestible, and you can just click through to the little bits that are important to you. Importantly, what we were talking about earlier in the program, due dates. That's always very helpful to have that coming into your inbox, and do glance at it. I mean, there's some really great top tips on record keeping, which is what we were talking about earlier, changes like single touch payroll and TPARs, and also don't forget about your consultants, your trusted advisors, your BAS agents, your accountant, and of course your local businesses, your professional association for things that are really industry specific. There's, as you mentioned, Justine, there's lots of really great places to get help and support. The ATO is one of them.
That's right,
because you guys are there too. to ensure that people pay their taxes and do the right thing, which is what 99% of businesses out there want to do.
Absolutely. And we've also, you can follow us on Facebook as well. And, you'll find out things, on Facebook and some of the social media channels as well, about things like the instant asset write-off. So just make sure that you're, following what is available to you. And really, your tax agent and BAS agent absolutely are your really great sources.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on the program today. If you have missed any of today's show, you can, of course, catch up on smallbizmatters.com.au, where you can listen to up to 140 podcasts, plus we have 70 podcasts available for download on iTunes. Lots of great information, and I'm very proud to say we have yet to repeat a topic. Thank you for coming on the program again, Justine.
Thanks for having me, Alexi. It's been wonderful.
You've been listening to Small Biz Matters here on Triple H 100.1 FM and across the Community Radio Network. We will see you all next week with another fabulous guest. This is Alexi Boyd signing off for Small Biz Matters.